Hello and welcome to the PhD Life Raft podcast. I'm Emma Brzezinski and today I am talking to the wonderful Amal Abuzeinab. We are talking about disseminating your material while you are doing your PhD. Now, this is something that can strike fear into the hearts of PhD researchers, but Amal has such a gorgeous way of looking at it and also some top tips for actually doing it. So I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Amal.
Hello, Emma.
So lovely to have you here. I'm always so grateful for people. I know you are very busy, and taking your time to talk to us is such a gift. And I'm always blown away by people's generosity of spirit. So thank you for being part of that generous scholarly community and offering your experience and your wisdom to us.
Thank you for the invitation, Emma. I'm really delighted to be here. I absolutely love and listen to your podcast as a supervisor. So I think, I'm very grateful for the invitation. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you. And we were just saying, weren't we, about this conversation and encouraging conversations between PhD researchers and their supervisors. And this is so important. That kind of communication is really key. In fact, this is a whole other episode we could be doing. I might get you back in a minute because that isn't what we'd agreed to talk about. But actually, it really is. It's a really important one. And if the podcast is a way to kind of start to put thoughts and ideas out there for everyone to start thinking about, then I'm absolutely delighted about that. Blimey, that would be amazing. But today we have agreed that we're going to talk about disseminating material along during the PhD journey, and because that's something that people aren't sure about doing, or then how to do it. And you're going to share your experience, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you.
But before we do that, I'm going to ask the same that I asked to everybody in terms of sharing your PhD journey and how that was for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my PhD journey was between 2011 and 2015. That was in the School of Built Environment, University of Salford. And I was a full-time PhD student at that time. And it was a funded PhD by the Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, EPSRC. What I did on my PhD, or what was the thesis title at the end, of course, I didn't know that would be my thesis title, which I think is always, yes, we do the research, we have a starting point and everything, but you don't know what you will end up with or what you will finish up with. So my thesis title was Implementing Green Business Models in the UK Construction Industry, Opportunities and Challenges. And what I did in my PhD, of course, now I have very clarity around what I did. I didn't have that clarity back then.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yes. So my PhD was really an interdisciplinary research. What I did is I looked at the green business model concepts and ideas from business and management literature and the work that is being done there. And I have adapted and made that suitable for construction and built environment. At that time, when I was researching in 2011, I think I barely found any paper that looking into the same thing within, let's say, within built environment or even construction. So it was very, very rare. Now things have kind of like moved on. And the main idea behind the thesis is almost trying to innovate our thinking towards that green transition, what we do, how we can do it. And that was kind of, let's say, the outcome of the PhD. In terms of the journey itself, I think I would say it was kind of like a really straight journey in a sense, where, and again, when I look at PhD, usually I look at kind of like three factors within the PhD. It's usually the postgraduate researcher themselves, who's ideally they're supposed to be almost like self-select and also kind of like an independent learner. They are having that openness for learning and adaptation along the way.
Mm.
And also the institute or the university where you are based. This is very, very important because I kind of like see them as they are the one that they are creating the right conditions. So they are creating the right, let's say, training. They look at your needs and what are the general needs that you need to be able to kind of like succeed and complete on time as well within, let's say, within the time frame that you have been given.
Yes.
And then the supervisors, which again, they are definitely important. So they are the one that they offer the guidance and they make sure that you have got that autonomy within your PhD. So they don't intervene that much. And at the same time, they don't neglect you that much. So it has to be really kind of like a balance. I think it's very difficult to explain it how it is done, but I would roughly see it as, yes, you want to give the PhD that kind of autonomy. And at the same time, you want to give them a little bit of loose structure or some structure, some directions, so that they can know and understand that they are going in the right direction or they need to change something maybe and revise the thing that they do. Yeah, so that I would say roughly was my PhD. And I think all those kind of like 3 factors were right in a way. And that's why it's kind of like it went well and I completed on time. And I think I had like just like normal issues, like almost like a little bit of problems in data collection, not finding the right people to interview and kind of those, let's say, practical stuff. But then again, kind of like I dealt with it from that, let's say, research perspective and finding different ways, different type of analysis so that I can still get something out of it, even if I didn't have the number that I wanted to have.
I love it. Normal issues. I love that. And I think it's really important to name that, though, because I think that when bumps come in the road, and they will come, that's the thing, they will come for every PhD, it can be really destabilizing. And if we can normalize the fact of that there will be issues.
Yes.
Everybody
Lots
has
of
them.
issues.
Exactly. Lots of issues. And some people have more than others. And some people have, there'll be different types of issues depending on your particular project and your particular situation.
Yes.
But everyone has them. And I think it's brilliant because, obviously you've got a good news story and you saw that actually the process was generally smooth for you, but there were still issues which you had to manage.
Yes.
But I think what you highlighted there in terms of your own resilience, your university, your institutional support, and then your supervisor support, and getting that kind of that fine balance between allowing you space but providing you structure. And that is, there's an art of supervision in there.
Absolutely.
And also about being matched. I think being matched with a student, having that sense of being able to work together. That's tricky, but can be magical when
Absolutely.
when it works.
And I think also it needs the time as well. It definitely, I think it needs, although it's like no one is talking about this idea of, let's build the trust or build that relationship. But there is like a really essential part of this relationship building. And I think people get it from experience, or they might have it, I don't think they will have a structure for it, but they would almost like deal with it as kind of like one-to-one basis, how you build those relationships, how you build those working relationship between the supervisor and the postgraduate researcher, how it's being done.
Yes.
And again, we need to kind of like think about that in our timing as well.
Yes. It is, and it needs work and grows alongside and shifts alongside the PhD, because it will be different types of supervision at different stages as well, isn't it?
Yes, that's a really good point. That different type of supervision during different time or different stages of the PhD. I think that's a really key one. Thank you for highlighting that.
Oh, bless you. And say, this is, I already think we need you back to talk about supervision in more depth, but we're going to, here's to normal issues. I'm having that on a t-shirt, normal issues. But this time we agreed that what we were going to talk about particularly was disseminating material. So can you talk to us a little bit more about what you mean by that and what might be involved in that?
Okay. Great. So I'm using the word dissemination in purpose, because the idea is it's almost like every discipline is very different in the way that they disseminate the research. And when we say dissemination, is almost sharing and communicating the research as you go within the PhD. And this could start from something even as small as participating in the seminars that's happening within, let's say, your institute or within your university. There will always be spaces, very informal, and you might just come and talk about, let's say, the starting point of your PhD. Maybe you start with a specific, let's say, theory or a framework or something that you are starting from. Maybe you can even talk about the proposal if you are in the very starting stage of your PhD. So the idea is really communicating and talking about your research in whatever form or shape that is suitable and relevant for the discipline that you are coming from. And the idea is almost like to build that within the years of the PhD. Let's say you can almost like look at it as a scaffolding, maybe. Yes. So the starting point is maybe I'll talk about my proposal, even if I'm not clear about it. And I think, again, we need to kind of like really be comfortable that we don't know, because we are doing research. So when you're doing research, you don't know the answers. You are following a process. You are trying to think about, okay, what are the possibilities? You are trying to make sense of things. And again, that talking and communicating your research and disseminating and going to different places, it does help a lot with the PhD itself. So you become better at articulating your PhD. Yes. You become better at understanding where you come from, like which discipline that you kind of like draw some, let's say, lessons from. Yes. And then you can grow from there. Let's say the next step, it might be a peer-reviewed conference. And again, in the PhD, you want that feedback. You don't want to finish at the end and then you come to your viva without being kind of like talked and disseminated your research in those forums. Yes. Because again, all this will help you to be ready for your viva. Yes. And then maybe after that, you can say, okay, now I have done this experience. What next? What I can do in the next stage? It might be now you already have got your empirical, let's say you have engaged with your discipline, the empirical kind of, let's say, data or the original data that you are bringing. You interacted with your field, and then you start to have some kind of like initial findings from your research. Again, you don't have to wait until you have everything done, but you can share those initial findings. You can test them. You can test your thinking process, what it is like, how people are perceiving that. And then again, you might think about, okay, can I do a journal paper now, peer-reviewed journal paper? Because you get those reviewers back and forth, and you engage with them in that discussion, in that research discussion. They might disagree with this, but then you might either defend it or kind of like put your reasons why this is suitable. So all this is really good preparation. And then maybe if you have got an opportunity if someone invited you to kind of come and even to teach maybe your research methodology, why not? That's a form of dissemination. Maybe there is a very specific topic within your PhD that you covered in so much details. You can get an invitation. Someone asks, can you come and talk about this? And I think, saying yes to those opportunities where you kind of have that broader engagement, broader dissemination is really, really helpful. And even now we have podcasts as well. So maybe someone would ask you to come and talk in a podcast for a very specific thing within your PhD. Again, you can say yes to those ones. And you really learn a lot from those processes. Absolutely great learning. Yes. And it's, I call it like you become Viva ready. Because at the Viva, it's in the UK context, it's an open exam book. So everything is in front of you. And usually as examiners, we go almost like page by page or chapter by chapter and try to ask, almost like testing the knowledge and understanding that you have done this research and then you have got the reasoning behind everything. And it's literally is a similar process. But if we build that earlier on the PhD, by the time you are in your Viva, you already maybe have talked in 6 places or 7 places, or maybe you have submitted a conference paper or a journal paper or a seminar. And you can also put that into your thesis. So it becomes almost like this thesis is supported by, and then you put all the engagement that you have done, all those disseminations you have done during the PhD. And I think that's a really great value and a great learning experience as well for the PhD. So that's kind of like my thinking around the dissemination.
Oh my goodness, there is so much good stuff in there. So much good stuff. I think, yes, working backwards, this idea, yes, of you don't want to get to your Viva and have never publicly discussed your work.
Yeah.
Because I think we're creating the work, aren't we? And often sitting at our own desks.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a very different skill to discuss it and extrapolate and answer questions on. So I think giving yourself that rehearsal, I love that idea. Love it, because it's really important to think about it like that. This is kind of like a bit of sort of Viva rehearsal, but of course this isn't completely petrifying. This is why lots of us avoid it, right? Because it just feels so scary.
I know, it's so scary. And I remember
yes.
like my I remember my first ever experience. It was just I can until now I can remember like how I felt. But the idea is, even with those feelings, as long as you have almost like practice well, and you have, let's say, done like a mock thing with your supervisor or even with your peers, you're ready to go. And we learn through that.
Yeah, well, what I love also about what you said is this sense of laddering it and just start small.
Yeah.
Like you say, even if it's just you're going to talk a little bit about the questions that you have.
Yes.
In a departmental seminar or a group of other PhD researchers, to hear yourself talk about it, like you said, when you hear yourself talking about things, often different ideas come to you because you're exploring, and people are going to ask you questions and draw things out from you. And hopefully, if you're with a home crowd who's on your side, it can be really encouraging to have people listen to, you're sitting there on your own trying to work this out, to have people listening, attending, going, oh, have you read this thing? What about this? Would you like to come and hear this paper? Or can you come and talk to us about this? It can really open doors. And material that you would never have thought about because someone else is talking about it, and having people really listen to you, that can be such a gift and really encouraging. Really encouraging.
Yes.
And I think knowing that, as you say, going at a speed that feels comfortable for you. So you probably, I know some people do this, but for me, it wasn't the right thing to do. But for some people, they book a big international conference is the first time out. All power to you. All power to you. But I think that thinking about what feels manageable and what feels comfortable, and is there somewhere that that other friendly people are going to be there? You might present as part of a group, mightn't you, to start with?
Yes.
I think taking it in your stride. But I think this sense of thinking about how you're going to scaffold that, and then also obviously reminding us that how brilliant it will be when you do get to that Viva moment to have the peer refereed kind of rubber stamp.
Absolutely.
This has been accepted as a journal article. That is definitely a message to your examiners that this is valued within the field.
Absolutely. And I think also another tip that might be useful, when I look at, I think I looked at few conferences and even sometimes few workshops, and they do have a dedicated PhD tracks.
Yes.
And I think those one are very friendly because the idea, they want to kind of, again, they want to train you. They want to be that kind of like supportive environment where you kind of like, you come and you have peer reviewers who have been, let's say, been examining and also been supervising PhDs. So they do have lots of experience around how to give feedback and how to kind of even how to give you almost like that feedback forward, like for your future presentation, what to do, what are the things that you can consider. So maybe, yes, again, if you are someone who really saying, oh, this is definitely not for me, maybe try to find those dedicated places for PhD tracks. And they have that kind of like sense of training and learning built within them as well. So that might be a useful point.
That is a brilliant tip. And I think, as you say, it's all feedback. It's all useful material. Probably go before you're ready, because you'll almost certainly never feel ready, I think.
Never.
And so that kind of as low risk as you can make it, give it a go, have someone friendly in the room.
Yes.
And to give you feedback on it. And I think also, just to jump back to what you said before, was really important in terms of submitting things to journals. Again, you're going to get golden feedback there.
Yes, absolutely.
From editors who are, at the cutting edge, are going to give you thoughtful reflections on your material, how it sits in the bigger discourse. That can be so useful. Even if it's a rejection, it's still really useful information for developing your work.
Definitely. I cannot agree anymore. I think, yes, because again, if we just really rethink about it, it's all feedback. You want that feedback. You want someone to talk to you. You want someone to test your knowledge. You definitely want to do that before your Viva, because as we said, Viva is really testing your knowledge about what you have done and asking you any question as long as within your thesis. But also in the Viva, there is lots of questions around the things that you have left out, why you have left them. So it's not just about, your scope, that's fine. But also examiners will ask you questions around, did you consider X and Y and Z? What happened to this one? Why this context? Why this methodology? Why this approach? And you have to give justification for all of those things. You are absolutely responsible for what you have written and submitted.
Yes, exactly that. And being able to manage that is a whole different skill set. And you want to practice that. You do want to practice that, and build your confidence with that. Because the last thing you want when you get to that Viva day is everybody is going to be nervous. Nervous on a sliding scale between nervous and completely, throwing up before you go in, kind of thing. I think that this is where people are going to sit. But if you at least have, like you say, have at least had a kind of few run-outs, you've had a sense of how this feels, and confidence in talking about and receiving questions on your material. I think this is brilliant. At the beginning you said I'm really passionate about this subject, and I was like, brilliant, and I love it. I love that there's a kind of this scaffolded approach, and this sense of being clear in terms of what it's about. It's not, you're not just doing it for the sake of it. It's actually there's a kind of real focus for this kind of activity.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Because I think when we look at the PhD the PhD is a training to become an expert, to become, and I think I used to say a lot, independent researcher. Yes, definitely independent researcher. But I think also it's very important to think about the PhD. By the end of it, you're supposed to be the expert on the topic that you have done.
Yes.
And that's part of the training. So to become an expert, you need to be asked questions. You need to be able to give answers. You need to be able to justify things. And if you don't have the answer, that's absolutely fine. You can say, I'll look this up. I will check this out.
Yes.
I didn't consider this. I will look into it, because you don't want to kind of like make things up. No. As an expert, that's part of being professional and saying, oh, I didn't consider this. But it sounds interesting. I will go and check X and Y and Z. And that's fine. So I think, thinking about the end goal and trying to almost like mimic that end goal while you are doing the PhD, I think that's the kind of like the essence of it.
Brilliant. So I hope this has inspired people to go find opportunities to talk about their work and disseminate their work. And other people are hungry for it. They're waiting to hear what you've got to say about this topic. So put it out there.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So out of all of that, Amal, what would be your top tip?
Okay. Am I allowed to have like 3 top tips?
Oh, of course, you're lovely.
Great.
You can have 3.
Thank you. And I'm saying that because I want to give those 3 tips. One as a supervisor, and another one as a head of postgraduate researcher, and the third one as a PhD examiner. So the first one as a supervisor, I would say the first tip is a good PhD thesis is a finished one. So finish that work. That's number 1.
Love it.
Thank you. And then number 2, as a postgraduate researcher heading my institute, I always say, find the resources that are available within your university and use them for your own achievement. There is a lot of things that is available. There is a lot of support. Anything that you can think about, there is a support service within the university. So definitely make use of those services. And the last one, as the examiner, whenever like I have a PhD examination, most of the time, or not most of the time, actually all the time, I look if this work has been disseminated before or not. And that gives me a lot of kind of like a quality assurance. I would say, okay, I'm too relaxed now, I'm fine because this has been tested. This has been done somewhere else. So the value of those dissemination and publication during your PhD, it does make your Viva much kind of like a better experience, and it gives that assurance to the examiner.
This is genius. This is genius. From the horse's mouth there, everyone.
Thank you.
Amal, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. And I know that this will be useful for lots of people because it's something that we don't sort of reflect on enough, I think. And thank you so much for kind of inviting us to see it as a parallel process, really, for the PhD.
Thank you, Emma.
And thank you all for listening.